South Carolina lawyer Alec Murdaugh was allegedly shot in the head in Hampton County on Saturday afternoon. This comes months after his wife and son were murdered. Today, I talk one-on-one with local attorney David Aylor for his legal analysis on this case for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. David Aylor, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
You know, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, Quintin, even if it's over Zoom and not in person.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate it greatly. Obviously, you are a lawyer here in Charleston, and speaking of Charleston, everyone's talking about the Murdaugh case right now. Let me take you back to Saturday. CNN reported this. A prominent South Carolina attorney says he was shot Saturday, according to law enforcement, about 3 months after he discovered the bodies of his wife and son dead outside of their family home right around Quintin County, which, according to CNN, deepens the mystery surrounding their unsolved mysteries and murders. Alex Murdaugh, who came from a long line of influential South Carolina lawyers and prosecutors, called 911 and reported he was shot early Saturday afternoon on a road in Hampton County, according to a statement from SLED spokesperson Tommy Crosby. Murdaugh was taken to a local hospital in Savannah, Georgia, where he was treated for, quote, a superficial gunshot wound to the head, the statement said. And according to the statement as well, at this time, no arrests have been made. CNN affiliate WCSC and WCIV reported Jim Griffin, Murdaugh's attorney, said he was told by the family members Murdaugh was changing a tire when he was shot. Griffin told WCIV a vehicle had passed Murdaugh and turned around when someone shot him. Let me ask you this, David. If he was allegedly shot in the head, some people are asking, how could he actually call 911?
Well, you have a lot, I don't know anything specific as to what his injuries were beyond what you just read and what I saw reported in other media sites. But essentially, you do have it where, a gun could be shot at someone and hit them in the head or anywhere else on their body or their appendages, and it just grazes them, which is essentially means just kind of barely come by and then scrape the surface and not actually enter their brain, enter their head. That would be my guess. You see that happen sometimes, particularly in what they've described in this situation is a gun shot from a moving vehicle where someone allegedly is shooting the gun while their vehicle is moving. So the target, whether it specifically be that person or it be just the vehicle itself, may not be hit exactly the way they want it hit. And that's where you see just, the gunshot wound, where it is still a gunshot wound. It's just not considered a serious or life-threatening one simply because of where it actually hit the individual. And that seems to be, again, I don't know anything specific more than what you've read, but that seems to be what occurred in this situation.
And it might be a redundant question, but why do you think authorities use that wording, a superficial gunshot wound to the head?
Simply because of that. It wasn't a situation where I would assume that the bullet entered their skull, caused any swelling within their brain or anywhere around within the skull. And that would be the reason that you would think that they didn't use any terms beyond just the fact that it was a superficial wound. And then, of course, what really follows along with that is the fact that the individual was released from the hospital within just a couple of days after the incident.
That's exactly right. And let me ask you, will the Dorothys look for any gunfire residue?
It's going to be difficult to do considering they don't have anywhere to look for per se. If it was a moving vehicle, obviously there will be a crime scene where the actual shooting occurred in or around the vehicle that the person who was shot was repairing. So they'll most definitely look for things like, shell casings and things like that. But as far as residue, normally in that scenario, it's going to be more of where you're looking at a person's hands, clothes, that sort of thing, without knowing who the person is that allegedly shot the person, or at least they haven't reported it yet. That wouldn't be something they would really be able to go after.
Speaking of recording, I know obviously he had a bill of grace to the head. Will the Dorothys actually watch the videos from the front and rear dash cameras that come standard with most vehicles?
I think so. Obviously, not will they just watch that. We live in a world today. You know, even if you're out in the country, there's going to be a lot of cameras, whether it be hunting cameras, deer cameras, things like that, as well as convenience store cameras. And so they'll look around, not just exactly where the shooting occurred, but look around within the proximity around that area. Looking for what vehicles may have passed during that period of time within an hour or two of the reported shooting.
And as you know, we all have cell phones these days. Can authorities actually track the cell phones in that area at the time of this alleged crime?
At least within some range, they can do it with to a tower. It's going to be where the cell phone's pinging from. But of course, in that situation, it's going to make it a lot easier if they know what cell phone number they're looking for that is pinging from that area. But yes, they can determine what cell phones are pinging around that time within the area of the shooting.
Do authorities believe this was a random or targeted, obviously, crime since this is a high profile person?
You know, they haven't really come out and said yet. Obviously, we're very familiar, unfortunately, with incidents of road rage. It could be as simple as that and just a coincidence. One case that comes to mind is you think back a few years to the tragedy of Michael Jordan's father, where he was on the side of the road and was ultimately shot and killed and robbed. Everyone believes that it was in relation to the fact of who his son was. And in reality, it was just a common thief who saw a nice vehicle and a person broke down on the side of the road. So this could, not saying this is a similar situation, but it could just be happenstance and a coincidence, or it could have something to do with, something he personally or his family has been involved in, or potentially is being looked at for by SLED and the rest of the state authorities.
Speaking of the rest of the state authorities, since, obviously this is a high profile case that is, do you believe that the FBI will eventually step in to resolve this case?
I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI wasn't even involved at this point in time, at least on some level. I know those reports are going to be something that we're not able to actually get at this point because of the fact that it's an ongoing investigation. But my guess would be that at least at some level they're involved as we speak.
And as we speak, I know Mr. Alec is in rehab apparently because of some issues with substance abuse allegedly. Do you think authorities will have a surveillance on him for his own protection?
Depending on what they believe the source of the shooting was and what the surrounding facts are, it would easily be something that you could think would occur. Also, in regards to the location of where he'd be in rehabilitation, that also would play into it. Whether or not if it was something that was not made public, so he wasn't made out to be a target, that also might be a way that, of course, he'd be protected.
And a lot of people have been to Hampton County to and from. I've been there personally, and most people take the main road, which is 17 South, down to Hampton County. And apparently, he took a different route to get to where he wanted to get to. What will authorities look at there?
I doubt anything. I mean, he's a local. There's a lot of different ways you get around that area. We all know the shortcuts if you live out in the country, or you go out to the country a lot. Different ways you go different routes for all different reasons. They could potentially look at that, but I wouldn't see it personally. And this is just my opinion as being an odd scenario, considering the fact he's born and raised in the area.
And obviously, the June killings of his family members brought renewed attention to Paul's involvement in the 2019 boating accident that claimed the life of a 19-year-old woman, according to CNN. When he was killed, Paul was facing charges of boating under the influence that is, causing great bodily injury and causing death in connection to the accident, court records show. Paul has pleaded not guilty, and obviously court records show that the charges were dropped after his death. Now that Alec has been accused of allegedly taking money from his own law firm, he has resigned and obviously is in rehab for substance abuse. What will authorities look at next in this whole big case?
Well, obviously, probably first and foremost, they're going to be looking at the deaths of the two individuals that occurred on the family property and who should be held responsible for those. In regards to what happened within the law firm, I don't know a lot of information beyond allegations that there's missing funds, but that's definitely something that could also be a criminal matter outside, of course, the civil issues that could come into play, as well as the South Carolina bar issues that would come into play.
David Aylor, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.